Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and uncover the hidden mechanics behind why the world is the way it is. We're going to do this without relying on politics or culture wars or really any kind of moral judgments. Instead, we are looking at the pure, invisible structure of human interaction. Imagine being able to see the matrix of how society actually operates, stripped of all the usual talking points and brought right down to its core physics. Well, that is exactly what we are going to explore today.
Now, what's really interesting about the question of why some groups fall behind over time is how incredibly quickly the usual answers get bogged down in partisan debates. Right? Some people instantly blame policy, others immediately point to culture, or maybe they point exclusively to free markets. It creates a ton of friction and, honestly, rarely leads to any real clarity. But today, we're swapping out those old lenses for the pure mechanical physics of society using something called the Productive Value Productive Power Framework, or PVPP for short.
So, traditional economics tends to view the world purely through the lens of money. It basically assumes we all act like perfect, rational calculators just trying to maximize a single, neat numerical score. But a human being isn't a bank account. A human is actually a lot more like a complex battery that needs different types of charging: physical, social, and emotional. We are going to use the PVPP lens. This understands that humans survive by maintaining power across multiple independent domains. I mean, you can't simply trade your fundamental need for daily childcare for a slightly better mortgage rate. Life just doesn't work that way. And our standard economic models often fail because they assume absolutely everything is perfectly tradable.
Section 1. Beyond just money, the mechanics of interaction.
To understand how society functions mechanically, way beyond just the flow of cash, we first need to establish the two fundamental rules of the entire system. The first piece of the puzzle is productive value, or PV. This is what literally moves between us during interaction. It's not just currency. It can be physical help, critical information, material goods, a sense of safety, instruction, or yes, even harm. Think of a simple cup of coffee. The hot liquid, the physical warmth, and the chemical caffeine, that is the actual productive value moving from the barista directly to you.
And that coffee example brilliantly illustrates the second rule, productive power, or PP. Think of productive power as your internal battery level. It's the actual capability that remains or changes after an exchange takes place. It's what a person can genuinely do, tolerate, access, or recover from. That exact same cup of coffee transfers the same productive value, but it affects a tired, overworked parent's productive power entirely differently than it would someone who just woke up from a full 8 hours of sleep. The value transferred is identical, but the resulting change in capability is completely different based on the initial state of that specific person.
Every single exchange we have follows a really precise atomic flow. It starts with pre-interaction. This is that initial moment a signal of potential value is projected by someone. Then comes the actual interaction phase, where the transfer of that value actually happens. And finally, our brains do a post-interaction audit. Did we get what we expected? Was it a match? Was it a surprise? Did it actually increase our productive power, or did it just drain us? Literally every conversation, every single purchase, every request for help runs through this exact mechanical circuit.
Section 2. The interaction corridor, compounding over time.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that humans don't just exchange value in a vacuum. Our capabilities, our productive power, actually route us into totally different paths over time. These paths are what the framework calls an interaction corridor. Think of your current productive power as a ring of keys. As you walk down the long hallway of life, your specific keys dictate exactly which doors of opportunity you can unlock next and which ones are going to remain firmly bolted shut. It structures exactly who will transact with you, on what terms, and with what level of institutional trust.
Now here is the compounding loop that explains, mechanically, why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and it is entirely separate from money. Step 1, your early capability formation opens access to a specific corridor in Step 2. Step 3, the interactions within that specific corridor transfer productive value to you. And finally, Step 4, that value builds your future capability. This cycle repeats relentlessly across your entire life. It means incredibly small early differences in capability compound into massive, unbridgeable structural divides later on.
Section 3. Childhood and education, the foundation of PP.
Let's rapidly apply this lens to the real world, starting with why early childhood is so radically important. We talk about it in moral terms a lot, but look at the pure mechanics. A simple reading lesson transfers early productive value that literally transforms into lifelong capability. It proves that skills literally beget skills. Plus, supportive adults buffer toxic stress, which protects that super delicate capability formation from degrading. This strong, early productive power then secures much safer adolescent corridors. And this perfectly explains the tragedy of why late interventions often struggle so much. They aren't just teaching a new skill, they are fighting against years of an individual being previously routed down weaker, degrading corridors.
This leads us to a pretty fascinating realization about education. Elite universities, for example, don't just teach facts. Actually, the literal information education is almost secondary. What they primarily do is concentrate and certify capability. And by doing so, they give students access to incredibly high-quality, exclusive interaction corridors. We're talking about exclusive hallways filled with powerful networks, immense funding opportunities, and high-trust counterparties that are completely inaccessible to someone walking down a different corridor, regardless of their raw intelligence.
Section 4. Credentials and Technology. The Modern Corridors.
This brings us to the really dangerous gap between actual PP, what you can truly do, tolerate, or repair, and perceived PP, what your own mind or an employer's mind believes you can do based on a credential like a degree. This gap? This is where societal systems become highly unstable. If a university degree no longer guarantees actual skills, employers are going to frantically search for other signals. A person might have incredibly strong actual capability, but if they lack the precise credential needed to be noticed, their perceived capability is basically zero. And that completely closes off entire corridors of opportunity for them.
And then, of course, there's technology, which acts as a massive capability multiplier. First off, it raises total productive capacity across the board. But second, and honestly more importantly, it drastically alters the value of existing skills. Take a new AI tool that can instantly write code. It dramatically changes who receives market rewards. For a junior developer, it might completely close an interaction corridor they spend years trying to enter. But for a project manager who can now deploy software without a huge team, it instantly opens a massive new interaction corridor. It shifts the entire geometry of society practically overnight.
Section 5. Poverty as capability loss.
Through this PVP framework, poverty is absolutely not simply a lack of cash. It is fundamentally a capability and corridor problem. If your daily childcare collapses, or you completely lack institutional trust, or your local environment is totally unsafe, simply handing over a cash check won't magically fix the fact that you are structurally locked out of stable interaction corridors. The non-fungibility of human needs means your ability to sustain your life across multiple domains is compromised in ways that money alone just cannot immediately repair.
Bad environments are essentially repeated interaction fields that violently erode your capability faster than you can possibly build it. Chronic stress acts like a mechanical weight dragging down your physical and mental PP. Predatory markets, like payday loans, they extract immense value, creating massive negative PV transfers without building any future capability for you. Weak networks fail to warn you of danger, or they fail to provide critical job information. Ultimately, the environmental damage outpaces the individual's mechanical ability to rebuild their battery. It traps them in this compounding loop of disadvantage.
Section 6. The Mechanics of Society. Artificial PP Insertion.
So, if the natural state of uncorrected systems is to mechanically prune weak agents who are pushed into these degrading corridors, how do we actually alter the trajectory? Well, we can mechanically reroute lives through deliberate intervention. The framework calls this artificial PP insertion, and the word artificial here doesn't mean fake, it just means a deliberate override of the natural loop. Actions like ensuring early nutrition and safety, providing robust mentoring, or giving direct access to job training literally force an individual into a better hallway of doors. By mechanically inserting capability, we shift people into higher quality interaction corridors, basically altering their entire destiny. What's absolutely vital to remember as we look at this whole framework is its strict neutrality. As the framework clearly states, PVPP does not say society must intervene. It does not contain a fairness command. It tells us what such actions do. They change corridor access. This means it doesn't judge right or wrong, and it certainly doesn't issue a moral command about what policies we should pass. It simply models the objective mechanical consequences of intervention and of non-intervention, showing us exactly how social divides are built and maintained. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a quick thought exercise. Think about the exact position you are in right now. Ask yourself, what interaction corridors shaped the doors available to you today? Which specific early transfers of productive value, maybe ones you didn't even notice at the time, ultimately define the pathways and the hallways you walk down right now? It's a fascinating and, perhaps slightly humbling mechanical lens to view our own history through, isn't it?